Building confidence in journalism has become more urgent than ever. To discuss this important topic, rebuilding public trust in media in the new year, we are being joined by the chairman of the Nigerian Union of Journalists, NUJ, Delta State Chapter, Comrade Churchill Oyowe. Good morning, sir, and Happy New Year.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, Ugaga. Thanks.
Yes, Cheesy. Yes, good to have you. So, quickly, let's jump into it. How would you assess the current level of public trust in the Nigerian media, particularly here in Delta State?
Sometimes when you are sincere with the facts, people tend to tell you wrongly. But it's obvious that as journalists, we have not done well, generally speaking, because the profession is still misunderstood by some of the practitioners. There are many, they see it as an avenue for stomach infrastructure, basically, and that has really affected the offerings that you get from these practitioners. That is the basic truth, but it's painful. Journalism is a disciplined pursuit for truth and public interest. I use the word disciplined pursuit for truth and public interest, and we're talking about trust. Before you can pursue truth in an accurate, fair, and transparent manner, you have to be disciplined. And in order for you to be disciplined, you have to be trained in the acts of journalism. Many of the people practicing journalism today do not have discipline in them. That's why you see the kind of journalism of practice as what I would term enemy beliefs. So it has sort of eroded that public trust in the profession. It's not as if we don't have people who are doing well in it, people who have decided to see journalism because that is what they study as an avenue for giving voice to the voiceless, an avenue for making institutions to account for their activities, an avenue for bringing about transparency, accountability, and social justice. We have a number of them in the profession doing that very well. But unfortunately, we still have some persons who you can call the bad eggs. And when these things happen here and there, they tend to be generalized. That's why I said, because this generalization may not necessarily be properly termed, but because it has happened to one or two persons in society and it's a pain, people tend to generalize to see it as the norm. Otherwise, we have a number of persons who are still doing the trade, professionally speaking. So that is where we find ourselves. People who enter the field, of course, they may be trained, but we also have quacks who are not trained, who are also in the field, practicing journalism. And they have not seen it as the disciplined pursuit for truth and public interest, but merely for stomach infrastructure.
Sorry, please. Where does the union come in holding its members accountable when you talk about this discipline and all of that?
Yeah, the union is there to actually moderate the activities of its members. It has been so from time immemorial. Journalism started, let's not say immemorial, it started in Nigeria in 1955. So it's some years back. We celebrated 70 years last year. So it's quite some time. But then we are guided by ethics. Ethics are not enforceable.
Okay.
So that is the basic challenge that we have as a union. You need more than ethics to moderate the recalcitrance. Use the word. You need more than ethics to moderate the excesses of some persons. We need to back ethics with law. Ethics become meaningful. Ethics become purposeful. Ethics become result-oriented when it is backed by law. But journalism practice today in Nigeria is not backed by law. It is there in the Constitution in Section 22. But the enforcement of the ethics is not backed by law. Section 22 talks about holding government accountable in the dissemination of information and ideas through the press, the radio, the television, the newspapers. But we are guided by ethics only. And like I said, ethics become powerful when it is backed by law.
Okay, are you saying that...
Which we don't have.
Okay, so are you saying that aside from a law being passed, that that media organizations cannot demonstrate their commitment to accuracy, fairness, and transparency in their reporting? Now, let's also merge that with building trust with our audience. Now, with
you talk about the union, I'm telling you our handicap.
Okay.
Yes, generally speaking,
yes,
in the society there are laws concerning something about slander and libel.
Okay.
You understand?
Yes.
That is for the general society,
Okay.
where courts will now come and decide. But as a union, we can only enforce that area. We can only talk about ethics.
Okay, so
We can only preach ethics. We can only preach ethics.
Okay.
But we cannot really enforce them. It is when you have laws that you can enforce. For example, if there is a council, like we have in other professions, we have in the medical profession, Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria, called MDCAN, Nursing and Midwifery Council of Nigeria. You have that of pharmacists. You have that for engineers, current. You have that for surveyors, many professional body, NIPR, Nigeria Institute of Public Relations. You have laws backing their establishment. If we have something, we used to have something called press council, but it's not effective. The law is neither here nor there. If we have something like Journalism Council of Nigeria that will regulate both the broadcast, that will regulate the broadcast, the print, and the social media. There's a council made up of those in government, those in the profession, and those in the private sector. They will form the council. Then we cannot say we have law that we enforce or enhance our codified creed, which we call ethics.
Okay. All right. Let's talk.
But we don't have that in Nigeria as we speak.
Okay.
So if, for example, a practitioner errs, he goes scot-free, except the law in the wider society catches up with him. Somebody feels aggrieved and said, you have slandered you to court. But within, we need to also enforce it within the way others do. If in the medical field a doctor errs, MDCAN will investigate him. You can suspend, you can withdraw, things like that. Because with those in mind, it keeps the practitioners on the edge, in check, making them to be more ethically oriented. But in journalism, we don't have that. In fact, it has even been taken over by quacks. So it is difficult. You cannot even check your own members who are trained per se. No, talk of those who are not trained, who are in the profession and causing more effort. So you can see where the public trust issue is a challenge.
Okay, you talked about quacks, and I think that's where talk about social media should come in. Now, what role do you think social media platform plays in the spread of misinformation, and how can media organizations effectively navigate this platform to promote trustworthy content?
Now, let me just make this clear. Social media is one of the three genres of journalism. You have the broadcast made up of radio and television. You have the print, the hard copy,
Yes.
and social media is a combination of these two.
Yes.
In what do they call it? In World Wide Web. The combination of these two in the World Wide Web. So it is not the property of quacks. I must clarify that. That's why when it was evolving, we were encouraged. We who are trained practitioners were encouraged to inculcate the social media in our offerings. Today, most mainstream media, they call them traditional media, the radio, the television, the newspaper, they now have their social media arms. So it is not like when you say social media, you're talking about the domain of quacks.
So it's
Yes,
it's been
quacks-
hijacked.
Quacks might have hijacked it early enough and even perpetrating themselves there now,
Okay.
but it is not their domain. It's just that there is no law regulating the activities of journalism, including journalism in the social media in Nigeria, and we need those laws urgently.
Okay. So do you think misinformation and fake news have overshadowed the credibility? Because we're talking about quacks, but the fact that they are quacks does not mean that they are also journalists of integrity, diligent journalists. But do you think that with all that's happening, misinformation, fake news, it has overshadowed the credibility of trained journalists? And if you think so, how can this be corrected?
Well, there is no profession where you don't have what they call mixed breed. You have the good, the bad, and the ugly. Journalism is also affected. There are those who do not deliberately misinform. That's what we call disinformation. They deliberately do it. Some do it without knowing. That's what we call misinformation. So they are just there. Some of them do it to gain clicks,
Traffic.
to get their stories trend,
Yes.
traction, and the rest. So it's all there. The professionals are doing it. The non-professionals are doing it. So it's something that is a challenge, and it's also eroding the kind of trust that you
So
have.
how can it be corrected?
Well, like I said before, there's no profession that does not have this kind of.
Or how can it be
It
mitigated?
it can be corrected. I've said it before.
Yes.
It can be corrected when we submit ourselves to regulations. It is not easy. Some people will feel that, oh, journalism is not supposed to be regulated. They will now be thinking alongside the earlier thought process for journalism practice, which is hinged on a libertarian system of journalism. You remember, we talked about theories of mass comm. There's what they call the libertarian theory of mass communication that talks about freedom unhindered. But we all know that there is nowhere in the world where you have absolute freedom. You hear your own stop, that's where another begins. So, to that extent, libertarian theory did not see the light of the day. And there's what we are now accepting as more meaningful, which is the social responsibility theory, that it is better for you to, in practicing journalism, to see yourself as part and parcel of the society, so that whatever you are doing,
You know that the effects will come back.
you know that the effects will affect you, will affect your loved ones, will affect your community, and as long as you are part of that community, you have to exercise restraint in whatever you give at. So, to a large extent, the social responsibility theory, it has been the middle way between libertarian theory and the other extreme end of Soviet socialist theory, or what they call in modern day I've forgotten the name, but it's another pro-government, the other extreme of government, where you have to be on one sided. You have to be guards, complete authoritarian theory. I remember now, the authoritarian theory.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is this: we need to be moderated, and that moderation is what will now bring about that consciousness of balancing. There is need for balancing in whatever you are doing. When you talk about objectivity as a concept in journalism, it encompasses objectivity, factuality, neutrality, and balance. So all this put together is what we need to, on a daily basis, be moderating what we give out as journalists. We need to be moderated through the codified grid called ethics, but made more enforceable through laws. So we need to submit ourselves to moderation, like other professionals are doing. We have not submitted ourselves to moderation, and there have been several attempts since I started practicing journalism over 25 years ago. There have been several attempts to moderate journalism in Nigeria, but unfortunately, some persons usually see it as a deliberate ploy to gag the press. No. The way it is now, it is being abused even by practitioners. But if you submit yourself to moderation, it means that there will be a council that will be regulating the practice of journalism in Nigeria, right from the training institutions. For example, there is this Nursing and Military Council of Nigeria. They will determine the number of nurses you will employ, you admit into your institution, based on the facility that you have. The same thing with medicine, pharmacy, all over. That is part of the moderation we're talking about. And even after you have graduated, you still have to go for what they call proper induction to make you understand where you are. They call it law school for lawyers. Medical people, they have their own name. It's for you to ask.
For doctors.
It's for you to no. It's a kind of school. It can be housemanship,
Yes.
because it's also a school. You will be trained in the profession properly, not just the one that you experience in the four walls of a university. So journalism has not gotten there yet. In fact, it pained me that non-professionals went ahead to unbundle mass communication without knowing the implications of it. You don't unbundle a profession that is still at its infancy. It is when you have finished learning everything about the profession, you go into masters, then you can unbundle it at that level.
Yes.
But unfortunately, the people who presided over the unbundling are mostly non-professionals. People who did not study mass communication. So they went and unbundled it. That is where we are now.
So
we continue.
Are you saying the union is not strong enough to regulate this?
It's not about the union.
Okay.
The union is just a stakeholder in this whole exercise. We need other stakeholders to help us, because we are part and parcel of the society. We need, for example, if you are talking about coming up with a council, there has to be a legislation right from the House of Representatives. The legislation that will bring about the creation of a council. But we did that like 2 times in the past. But ignorance on our part as a union, on the part of Guild of Editors, I'm sorry to say this, but it's the basic truth. We allowed ourselves to be used by Newspaper Proprietors of Nigeria, those who employ journalists and other persons, Broadcasting Organization of Nigeria, private owners of, and government and private owners of broadcast institutions, or no, broadcast outfits in Nigeria. You know why I'm saying this? These are our employers, NPN and BON. They are our employers. They employ journalists. But in Nigeria, they are missing a lot. They just employ you, throw you into the markets, go to state, go to Delta State, go to Edo State, without proper arrangement for you. And again, they even employ non-professionals, people who did not study the course. Once you just have flair for journalism, or you can be trained and you will not be deployed, you'll just be given some kind of ad hoc training, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks training, 3 months training, and will send you to the field without proper indoctrination that you would have gotten if you had gone to a university for 4 years at least. They will now put everything in you within 3 months at most. That is, if they can sacrifice 3 months, and they will not send you to the field. Worst of all, no accommodation, no letter, for example, no formal letter. They just give you introduction. Go to Delta State and introduce yourself as the correspondent there. These people are not paid salaries. And you see, when they come here, they don't know anything about ethics. It's how to feed, how to survive.
Because of the way they were sent out.
Because of the way they were sent out. But if we have a council will not only talk about how you train them. These are the numbers of persons you can take as a university based on your infrastructure, based on the facilities that you have. The council will also ensure that when you employ these people, you take care of them. There must be minimum standards. One of them in Nigeria here, we celebrate him a lot. He has a television station, he has a newspaper. He went to South Africa to try it. He was sent packing. Because there, they have laws that protect the practice of journalism. They have laws there.
Things are not just done.
But here, journalism is helpless. No law backing the practice of journalism. It's not about just welfare alone. The truth is, when it is properly regulated, you will see the offerings matured. People will be forced to learn the trade in depth, so that when they are making stories, the stories will be stories that are accurate, verifiable, and responsible. That's why I said journalism is the pursuit of truth and public interests in a disciplined way. You cannot pursue it if you are not disciplined, and you cannot be disciplined if you are not trained. So we need that council to ensure that journalism is regulated in Nigeria.
Okay, so now
Section 39 of the Constitution talks about freedom of expression and publication and things like that. That is for all Nigerians. It's for all Nigerians. People tell you that they want to restrict freedom of expression and the rest. No. It's because they are running away from their responsibility. This BON, top-notch, and NPN, top-notch, Newspaper Proprietors Association of Nigeria, they are trying to run away from their responsibility. As business people, they want to cut costs by all means. You understand? And you don't blame them. They want to cut costs. They don't want to be paying salary. If it's possible, they don't even want to pay. Most of them don't pay salary. And that is killing the profession. It's killing the practice. It's making practitioners to be vulnerable. Because first and foremost, you cannot be talking about ethics when you are not fed, when you don't have a money to pay your accommodation, when you cannot transport yourself. So you can easily be compromised. Today, in the practice, you see one-sided journalism. I told them in our platform, NUJ platform, I said if I see one-sided story, a controversial story that is one-sided, I will yank it off. You see, I became a bad person. But as a professional, if you see a one-sided story, you must make effort to balance it. You must make effort. Don't say, because this person did not call a press conference, let us do it. If he pains him, let him call a press conference. No. As a professional, your training says that there must be balance. So if you see somebody giving one side of the story, you owe the public the responsibility to get the other side. A lot of people have turned journalism into commercial venture. In fact, people now consult them. They have unions, they have associations, they have forums where they contact them to cover stories. The NUJ is no longer relevant because we stand for balance. You see them patronizing them heavily. They are even on the monthly payroll of some politicians. And some of them are pay as you go. You understand? But these things are killing journalism.
Okay.
We need a council. We need to submit ourselves to regulation.
Okay. So now, with your office as NUJ chairman, Delta State Chapter, and with what you've said about the professionalism and all of that, does the Delta State Chapter of the NUJ have plans of training, reorientation of its professionals to uphold the standards of journalism in this new year? Because of course now you said the union does not have the power to enforce and sanction. So how about training, reorientation, and all of that? Do you have plans?
We have been doing all that. We have been doing all that and will continue to do. But you must have at the back of your mind that we operate a system that is similar to what we are practicing in Nigeria. We have National Executive Council. It's not about Delta State Council. It's about the National Executive Council. That's you have a national working committee carrying out its activity like the executive arm at the national level. So it's something that will be instigated from that level
to get approval from
to get the council we're talking about. We're talking about training. We have been doing the training. We have been doing all that, and we will continue to do it. But the training will amount to little if people are not conscious of the fact that there are consequences for not imbibing to the trainings that they have been subjected to or they have been given. And like I said, the best way that training will make more sense. Of course, training is very key. Those professions I mentioned, if you don't go for training for 1 year, you can be denied promotion. For example, if you are in the public sector, you can be denied. They call it continuous professional or training something. You understand? If you don't go for accountants, they do it. Lawyers, they do it. Doctors, they do it. Nurses, they do it. They go for training at least once a year. So it's something that is mandatory. And in our own capacity, we have been holding trainings for our members, collaborating with some NGOs. And I remember within our own capacity, we trained our journalists in one of our congresses on the Cybercrime Act. That is the law we have now, so that they don't fall prey to it. Until somebody says the Cybercrime Act is against the Constitution, it breaches the Constitution, that is the law. So I felt that many of our people are falling prey to it, they are making mistakes, and the police, sometimes we come and arrest them and want to prosecute them in court because of ignorance. They don't know what the cybercrime is all about, the Cybercrime Act is all about. So we have to hold training for them. And we continue to hold training, not just for things like Cybercrime Act, but on how to develop their skills, on how to make them to be effective and efficient in journalism practice. So it's something, training is a continuum. You can never overtrain anybody.
And I'm sure this includes engaging your audience in the right way, right?
Even what I'm doing is part of training. If I have a clip here, I'll put it in our platform for them to know. You understand? So training is part of human being. You don't stop learning until you are done there. It's what we call the soul. The soul of any human being must continually be renewed in the environments that is part of.
So finally, what message would you like to pass to the public as we've entered the new year regarding the role of media and the need for mutual trust? The message to the public.
The message to the public is that should still keep believing that journalism creed has not changed. Journalism is for them. Journalism is for their interests. We continue to pursue truth and public interest in a disciplined format, even though a few of us are deviants and quacks are making it worse. So we continue to be responsible, we continue to be transparent, accountable to the society, and that is our calling. We will not backtrack. We need their support, and by God's grace, we will get to a higher pedestal where journalism will be better moderated for greater societal benefits.
All right.
Amen. I think we have to say amen.
Amen.
All right, thank you very much, sir, for sharing your insights and for the work you continue to do in strengthening journalism in Delta State and beyond. Now, that was the chairman of the Nigerian Union of Journalists, Delta State Chapter, speaking on the topic, rebuilding public trust in the media in the new year. As citizens, journalists, and media consumers, the responsibility of promoting truth, accountability, and credibility rests on us all. So let's do what to do our part. Avoid the misinformation. Stay clear of disinformation. If you cannot, because truth now is we're all, most of us have access to social media. So you get a news story. If you cannot confirm it, stop forwarding. There's some messages, even WhatsApp tells you forwarded many times. You've not confirmed the story.
And then at the bottom you say forward to 10 more people.
So please, let's try to confirm. If you know you cannot confirm and independently verify that story or the source, it's better you do not spread it. Because at the end of the day, it might just be spreading a rumor, an untrue story, and being part of disinformation. Before we go, Chizzy.
Yes, for me, all I have to say is that misinformation is a no-no. And remember that this is Nigeria. Yes, we say that there's freedom of speech, but remember that freedom after speech is not guaranteed. So be wise in 2026.
Thank you so much for being a part of Friday's edition of Morning right here on Delta Television. On behalf of the production crew, it is I, Gaga Ikama, thanking you so much for your time. Do have yourself a lovely weekend. Bye-bye.
May I answer your question?
Yes.
Yes.